Good morning. It's my privilege to welcome you to the 53rd edition of the program we call Freighted Legacies. It's a very special program for me personally today because it takes us to the town of my mother's birth, um, a little town between Katowice and Krakow, and it is in a region known as Oberschlesien, Zagłębie. And we have very special guests from the town that I'll introduce in a moment. And we also have a very special guest who is a grandchild of someone who moved to Israel after the war and is a scholar of the history of Jewish life in Poland after World War II. So first, let me begin in order to very briefly introduce our guests. There's more information on our website. I want to, before I begin the introductions, call your attention to the fact that you need to look at the bottom of your screen and find there a globe. I invite you to choose the language you're most comfortable with, either English or Polish. Our interpreters, Marek Ostrowski and Marzena, will be translating from English to Polish, and Dominika Zakaszewska, as usual, will be at the controls for the presentations. So let us begin. First of all, I want to introduce Michal Ostrowski, professor of from Jagiellonian University, who has lived in the town of Olkusz his whole life. And today he's going to be sharing with us some of the important work he's done to create a website and a register of the books and materials that are being written by people from Olkusz and other places regarding Olkusz.
Thank you.
Next, thank you. Next, I want to introduce to you Krzysztof Kocjan, who will be involved in sharing with us the book that I'm holding. I must at this moment admit to we had hoped that this book would be translated to English. It's an 800-page book of enormous importance and uniqueness. There is a genre of books known as Yizkor books, and there is a Yizkor book for Olkusz, and I have cousins who wrote in it, Pinchas Gleitman in particular, of blessed memory. But the book that Krzysztof will describe to us and explain is something that reaches far into understanding not only the Jews of Olkusz, but also the region of Zagłębie. And finally, we have a presentation by Yechiel Weizman, who is a scholar at Bar-Ilan University. I think your official rank is lecturer, and we are very pleased that he is with us today. He has written a number of very important books, including this book, Unsettled Heritage. And for the purposes of this talk, we have posted the essay he'll be reflecting upon, and we're very pleased that he is with us today. And we're going to begin in the order I've just introduced everyone. So I'm going to invite Michal to begin and share with us the day after a very important event that took place in Olkusz yesterday, June 13th. Michal, if you could begin with helping us to understand your activities and work.
Thank you. So I can start, yes, to share. Yes. Share my screen. Okay, wait a moment. Let me switch it off. I think you can see my screen now, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start with presenting why and when I initiated this web page, or maybe historical repository, which is called Olkusz Jews, People, Names and Memory, which I try to keep both in Polish and English, but not everything is translated, so some part is only in one language there. Sorry. Wait a moment. Okay, so essentially here is a sentence who explains maybe my thinking about it. It was some 10 years or more ago when I started to think that essentially I knew that in Olkusz was a big Jewish community, but long years of my life, there was hardly any information in public domain on that. And I thought that essentially we in Olkusz, these one who are living here now, can be left without a real history of this town, without information about Jewish community which contributed so much over hundreds of years. So the idea to start to collect information, historical information, everything what I could collect was that so that not only emptiness does not remain. So essentially, I am not historian. I am an astrophysicist. So what I could do is just operate internet and to create a web page, and it is. Sorry. It was what I started to do, just intending to collect all information, pictures, texts, books, everything, stories from real people, which could preserve real people who were living here, people, their names, memory about their proceedings. Maybe I was also looking for information about conflicts between Polish community and Jewish community. There is not much information about it available. Essentially everything just to preserve history. And here one can see many of different Jewish families and people before the Second War. It is part of the cover of Krzysztof's book, which will be presented later. But only part of these pictures have attached names. And the idea of the web page was simply to make research, to look for information and to store this information, where providing information about history of Jewish community in Olkusz. And I wanted to concentrate more on people and on history, and not so much on Holocaust and death of our population. Even it is included, of course, but the goal was simply to preserve information about real living people here. So it is first page of my my web page. Now there is information about movie trailer. I will mention about it later, and also about this exceptional book by Krzysztof. In fact, it is provided, fully provided Polish version on the web page. So we wanted to make it available to everyone. And for now, these nice proceedings initiated by Chaim lead to the appearing, hopefully, English version soon. There are many, how to say, registers in the web page. So I splitted various information depending on my evaluation, what is the meaning of a given content. For example, here is Avi Appelstein, a long report to Aronson archive. But here are also letters from Bella Rotner, which is of particular value for me, and I will say a few words later about it. And for example, here is Abbe Schanzer story, the story which appeared from my correspondence with descendants of Abbe Schanzer. So, continuation of this page shows that there is also a section with books, with several books presented. I will show the ones. Some information about commemoration of Jews Holocaust in 1942. There is a nice picture from Bella Rotner with her handwritten description about Olkusz craftsmen, shoemakers, tailors, bakers, painters, builders, and one can also find here a link at the bottom, which is exhibition of Olkusz Jews. Very interesting exhibition presented often in June in Olkusz. Let me come to letters with exchange of letters with Bella Rotner. I was advised to write to her in Polish and simply ordinary letters, not emails. We started our correspondence some 10 years ago, and there was really a lot of information which she provided me. Also many pictures with her descriptions. For example, here she writes, "It's me here in America, Bella Rotner, or Bala Rotner ne Borenstein." Now, when I looked into these letters, I noted that essentially nearly in every letter where she sent me wishes to my family because of some holidays, New Year, she always added the last sentence, "and let a peace be in the world, and first and foremost in Israel, Amen." So I think it is somehow important in present time. I will not present all information which she provided, but I started this correspondence when Bella was above 90. But nevertheless, she writes here, "I remember a lot and I see everything what I am writing on." So it was really particular experience for me and gain for my web page, this correspondence and plenty of information about people living in Olkusz before and mostly during the war, because she was very young. Here on the right, here is a sister of Bella who was murdered during the Second War. Very important part are books. There are many interesting books. In some cases, I have full text available, and one can read these books from the web page. In other cases, only abstracts or comments on the book, and only information where to look and buy the book. So, of course, this book will be described deeply by Krzysztof later on. I only mentioned that in the web page there is also interactive. There are also interactive maps, street maps showing streets where people were living before the war. Because in present day Olkusz, sometimes the same names are in different places. Very interesting book was a book by Moshe Berger, who spent his wartime in Siberia, working in Siberia, and his memories are really very interesting and nice book to read. Also important for history. It was so interesting that we visited with my wife his family in Israel, in Holland, and there were plenty of his pictures. After the war, he was also, I think it was not his main job, but he was a painter, and he was painting many and very nice pictures. There are really a lot of books, and I would like to stress that several of these books were written much earlier, before I started to be involved in preserving history of Jews in Olkusz, including also Krzysztof and our colleagues Irek Cieślik and Olgierd Dziechciarz. They were doing studies and describe history of Holocaust in Olkusz and history of Jews. Here are also some books written abroad by Ann Kirchner, Salagift, My Mother Holocaust Story, based on her mother information, or What She Lost by Melissa Hunter. There is a book which describes also Olkusz by Mordechai Kanin. It is in Polish and English. I have only parts in Polish related to Olkusz. Also, some 20 years ago, we started in Olkusz so-called March of Memory, and it was initiated by Ireneusz, we call it shortly Irek Cieślik, and after 10 years of these marches, he also prepared a small book showing these marches. I will say a few more about something more about marches later on. Here also, I believe, Hilik book, but I cannot read here, and Krzysztof Kocjan, Extermination of Olkusz Jews, which was published in 2017. Okay. And here I add also information about this trailer of documentary which is announced at the webpage. The first public projection was in Olkusz just few weeks ago, and here is a picture from this first projection. It's really very interesting and very, how to say, with deep feeling. You could leave the cinema after seeing this documentary. So the title is, as the general idea earlier, so that only emptiness does not remain. And the director was Paulina Ibek, who now a director who is living in Olkusz, and it was real achievement by her to write this movie important for history of Jews in Olkusz. So to finish, let me say a few words about commemorations of the tragic days in June 42. Every June there are, since 20 years, there are these memorial marches, which are usually at 6 p.m. And in last years, we also decided to go to Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp to put flowers on places where Olkusz Jews were murdered after their march to the train station in Olkusz. There are also some accompanying events this year, but let me go to marches. Essentially, Polish Jews were taken to the death camp on June 13th and 15th, and there is tradition that on June 13th we commemorate their final march in their town. It is a bit particular that these marches are relatively well documented in photographs, because Germans made a number of photographs, and I will show a few of these photographs here. So the march started from the, now it is district office building, which is at Mickiewicza Street, but and all long columns of Jews, children, women, and men, older men, walked to the train station along the streets which we know now. So on the right, I show a commemorative plaque which is put on the district office building where we always meet and start. And here on the right, I show on the map the route of this, where we walk along their last march in Olkusz. We start from here, from Mickiewicza Street, and walk along several streets. Here along Augustiańska Street, which is close to the previous region of ghetto. Usually we also stop in two places. In one place here where 3 Jews were murdered few months before final Holocaust, because they were bringing food illegally to ghetto. Sometimes we also stop here where there was selection of people. Some fraction of Olkusz Jews were selected to go to work, and fortunately some of these who were selected to work were able to stay alive after the war. So few pictures of this big column of people coming here, and these buildings which are here. This building is at Żuracka Street, the place where I am living in Olkusz now. And I don't know if I can magnify it a little bit, but somehow it is really how I feel deeply sorry to see all these people and young children walking to their tragic death. So, wait a moment. So now we used to meet close to this building, close to this memorial plaque, and then usually some short story of the march and historical background is provided, and then we walk along the streets, making stops in some places and comparing. For example, here pictures which are prepared by our colleagues with current places. The last picture here is the one from the train station, and it is every year. So I have pictures from few years here. You can have a look at this march, and sometimes there are more people, including children from the school. Sometimes only some few tens who decided. There is no particular organization, just information is distributed between us and our colleagues, families, and people who know. And here are a few pictures from the train station, and you can note there is also a poster put on the train station with pictures from this tragic day from the train station, and usually there is this star made of lights, which each Jew had to keep on his arm. When we leave, it is like here on the right, and if I magnify it, one can see pictures of our Jewish community going to trains, and here waiting for train to go for their death. So let me show only one picture from Auschwitz-Birkenau, where we used to put flowers on the place where there was a gas chamber where all of them died. As our historian told us, there is no information about their last hours before death, because there was no selection then in Auschwitz, and simply everyone who came were sent to death. So a rather simple place to remember it. So it is everything what I wanted to show. I would like to thank everyone who helped to keep the web page, who operate with me and colleagues in preserving Jewish history of Olkusz. We always feel that this history is not only history of Jewish families, which now are descendants of Olkusz Jews, who are now distributed in various parts of the world, but also it is part of our own history, and we would like to keep it permanently and keep it well documented here. So I always ask everyone who could help with extending this information to contact me and to pass information to allow to present various items, maybe additional names or additional pictures of people who are living with us here. So thank you. It's everything from me.
Thank you, Michal. Thank you, Dr. Ostrowski. This is very moving as people are responding. I want to thank you for this work and for this ongoing being the term you used, a servant of memory. Thank you very much. We now turn to Krzysztof Kocjan, who will present. I had the pleasure of having a leisurely breakfast with Mr. Kocjan, who has traveled to Yad Vashem and has traveled far and wide to build this unique book. And it is a privilege to welcome him and invite him to speak about this publication.
Thank you, Chaim. Thank you especially to have this opportunity to tell you about my last book in these very sad days of 84th anniversary of so-called deportation of Olkusz Jewry to gas chambers at Auschwitz-Birkenau. So I would like to tell you a few words about my last book, Jewish Olkusz. I have to reveal that the idea of this book is not originally mine. It is the idea of Michal Ostrowski, who always complained when we discussed about the past of Olkusz, that there is more and more information about Shoah in Olkusz and in the region, while there is lacking knowledge concerning the life before. So as at the same time, I had I received the access from another colleague of mine from Olkusz, Jacek Sypień, to the register of Olkusz residents, pre-war register. This register consists, in fact, from 17 volumes. I think 11 of these volumes consist of 2 books. And based on this, I have taken this challenge from Michal to try to somehow recreate the picture of the Jewish community before the Second World War. This register is originally stored. By the way, it's in the very good shape in Olkusz, in very local, very special museum of firefighters. This register was open in the mid of 30s. So since then, we can trace the movement of the people living in Olkusz, the whole population of the Olkusz. We can trace this till the creation of the ghetto in Olkusz, and the ghetto in Olkusz was created by Germans in the half of September 1941. Of course, it's bureaucratic source, so it's not ideal source, but the main we can use for this purpose. We have, unfortunately, we have, at least I've not found in this source the information about any movements related with expulsion of Polish Jews from Germany before the war, but we know that some of them reached also Olkusz. There is no information about resettlements during the war, so there is no information about people being sent to labor camps, or also about the Jews from the part of Silesia, which was before the war part of Germany, who during the war in 1940, in June, were sent to Olkusz. To make this picture more, I would say, more concrete, I tried to assign pre-war addresses, streets, but also buildings, of course, if they exist, to today's addresses, today's buildings. For this, I used mainly the list of the owners of real estates in Olkusz, which is stored in the State Archive in Katowice. Here you have the example of the address, which was Square Marshal Pilsudski Square 1 before the war, which is currently Rynek, so Market Square 1. You have the pictures from 1941 when Germans opened Deutsches Haus, the German house, in the building which originally was owned by the Jewish family of Lender. What is strange, currently this address is the official address of the Olkusz municipality. Here we can see Olkusz before the war. It was not so large as it is now, but anyway, the center is the same. You see this, let's say, square and this small square inside. What is missing is the building, this water reservoir, which used to be till 60s of last century. I do not remember this building. I know it only from photos. Another building is missing the building of synagogue, the buildings of synagogue and neighboring building of, let's call it Jewish school. Also building of Jewish mikvah. does not exist anymore. What we can see today in Olkusz is or are the cemeteries, the old one, Jewish cemetery here, and the new one. In Olkusz we have two Jewish cemeteries. Olkusz was not a very big city. Before the war in Poland, there were two censuses. The first in 1921, Olkusz had less than 7,000 inhabitants. According to this census, there was split of population by religious domination. So you can see 3.9 thousand Roman Catholics and 2.7 of, at this time, called Mosaic faith. There is also split by nationality, which looks very strange. So I think it's very much impacted by the by the clerics who made to make the census. You have to remember 1921 is really beginning of independent Poland, who gained independence at the end of 1918. Another census we have 2 years later. We have more of inhabitants in Olkusz, almost 10,000. But Olkusz also expanded in the meantime by territory. So this, I think, is equivalent of 7,000 before in the previous census. The problem with attributing correct population to Olkusz is that in the meantime, Olkusz has lost exclusivity as a town. Another place called Wolbrom gain this status of town, so the data are split only by towns and by villages. Wolbrom before the war used to be by population very close to Olkusz. But we have data from the Olkusz Jewish community. According to this, there was 2.7 thousand members of community, so it's very close to 21. In the archives, we can find information about members of boards. We know that the rabbi was the same since the second decade of 20th century till the war, Mendel Rosenstrauch. We know what was property of Jewish community. There was synagogue, there was this school, call it Heder. There was mikvah, 2 cemeteries, and 2 undeveloped plots. We have a little bit problem to find, let's say, a good photo of synagogue. There is synagogue in the background, looking a little bit phantomic. This is the street at this time called Burzniczna, and today it's again Bożnicza Street. There is another photo of mainly of the upper part with the roof of the synagogue. And we have these photos, I think the one on the left side comes from Iskorbuch, and the second on the right side, we see already synagogue devastated without doors, without windows. So the photos are already taken after the war. The synagogue was dismantled by Poles in the mid of 50s. This is not very perfect photo, but the only one where we see mikvah building. This one with this window. And cemetery, we have a historical photo of the cemetery, which we call new. New cemetery. The old one was closed in 1914, and the new cemetery was open. This is pre-war photo, and there is a photo taken already shortly after the war. As you can see, the tombstones are completely devastated, and we see this new tombstone put by survivors of Lender family. I've never seen the remnants of this tombstone. How was Jewish society before the war? Of course, there were people, let's say, involved in industry. In Olkusz, there was aluminium factory, and we had some Jewish aluminium factory. There were some bigger entrepreneurs, but majority of the population, it was there were craftsmen, shopkeepers. What do we see from this register of residents? I've not seen any Jew being employed by public administration, Polish public administration, before the war. The political activity of Jewish society was dominated by Orthodox, with rising Zionism, and there were also activities of Bund and quite marginal of communists. There were organizations or associations for sporting, for philanthropic purposes, and for culture and education. Jews were present in public institutions, in local public institutions, rather on the level of the city. They were quite strong, as you can see in 27, 10 out of 24 mandates were taken by members of Jewish community. On the level of district, the presence and the power of Jewish society was much weaker. What is very important, not only for Jewish community, but for everybody, is introduction in 1919 by Polish state, the compulsory elementary school, so for children between 7 and 14 years old. For Jews, it meant that children frequented public schools in the morning, and Jewish ones, this Jewish school for boys was in the building neighboring synagogue, and for girls it was Beit Yaakov school they frequented there in the afternoon. Especially the second half of 30s in Poland is rise of anti-Semitism. We see it also in Olkusz, in the conflicts between parts of society based on these anti-Semitic reasons. We see economic boycotts, the Poles forbidding customers to enter Jewish shops, and we see rising ideas among Polish population supported by the state of forced emigration of Jews. Of course, Polish state had problem also with other ethnics, especially Lithuanians and Ukrainians, and currently we see more and more that Poland was not very successful in mitigating this conflict at this time. Coming back to Jewish Olkusz book, it's just the example how it looks. Here we have also Market Square. On Market Square, it's easy because some buildings are missing, not too much, but fortunately the numbers are kept almost the same. So we have Market Square 26, at this time Pilsudski Square 26. I tried to put the photo from that time. So from the left we have 30, 29, 28, 27, 26. Then we have here the streets which starts from the Market Square and before the war was called Parczewska, now is called Floriańska. Then I try to identify the owner of the building. I try to find in the published books of let's say of the business pre-war if there was any business activity at this address, and then I try to describe family by family all residents at this address. So I put the names, the first names. I put the data of parents, the dates of births, places of births, occupation, when somebody came to Olkusz or was born in Olkusz, when people married, then data about children, any movement from within the city or out of the city if they are recorded. Here we have the signature of one of daughters of Goldstein family. This is quite special source. I will come back later to this. Then I tried to add any information about the fate of family members during the war. We have some data about moving to ghetto or about being taken to labor camps. Then I tried to identify the survivors of the family, and on the very bottom of this note I tried to make the links with other family members, relatives living in Olkusz. As you can see, I tried to use the data available. For me, there is Polish passport for emigration to Palestine. There are also certificates of Palestinian naturalization. There are photos in this case provided me by a family member, Alex Kovran from Australia. There are again the signatures of children and the photos, and then next address 27 according to the same template. What is interesting in these resident records is the fact that we have some records related, or which we can identify as related with the creation of the ghetto in Olkusz. So here you have the photos from transfer to ghetto. Here is how it looks inside this register. So we have here the Polish family, and here I will make it bigger. Here you have the date of 16th of September 41, when they moved towards the center of the city. And here we can match it with the new location where these Poles moved, and we can see that at this location there was a Jewish family living before. So we have I think there are about maybe 20 such records. So it shows that this human movement was so big that administration probably decided to close this register and to open the new one. I tried to put some addenda to my book. So there are these pupil signatures. There was special action. It was exactly 100 years ago. So in 1926, it was anniversary of the creation of the independence of US, so 150. And the purpose, the idea was that the pupils of all schools, not only primary, but also secondary and also high schools in Poland, also some clerks. There is more than, I think, 100 volumes. They are available now, I think, online, both in US, in the Library of Congress. All of them, they are scanned. So here you can find the signatures of the pupils of this time. There is also the budget of the Jewish community with the list of premium or premium payers. And of course, I try to use also other sources, so to trace the fate, Yad Vashem data of the victims of Shoah was, of course, of support. Other archives, the documents you see here on this slide is it's one page of the girls who were sent from Olkusz ghetto because it was in March 2042, were sent to labor camps. So it's very shortly, less than 3 months before the liquidation of the ghetto. And here you have one of the page of the, let's say, deportation list. So very likely done during the gathering the people on so-called Gymnasium Square. There are also post-war sources. There are registration cards in the Jewish community, Jewish committee in Olkusz after the war, and there is also the one of the page of the list of survivors who registered after the war. In the index of persons, there is more than 6,000 persons indexed in the book, of which almost 3,000 Jews with their pre-war addresses identified. This is not the end yet, because the new sources are appearing. On the left, you can see the documents which are now more and more available from Ukrainian archives. There are documents of political police and NKVD, Soviet one. And on the right, you can see the list of Jewish survivors from Olkusz in Australia in the Jewish press of this time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Kocyan. I want to repeat that we have a promise to keep to complete the English translation of this wonderful work. And thank you very much for sharing with us. I want to move straight away to Yechiel Weizman's presentation. Yechiel, please move ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm very happy to be here, both as descendant of Olkusz. My grandfather Moshe Weizman was born in Olkusz and survived the war, and also as a researcher whose focus is on the memory and commemoration of Olkusz Jews. And today I will talk about one aspect of my research, which is focused around a very famous photograph taken in Olkusz. I will share my screen. And this is a very iconic photograph taken in Olkusz. This single photo was and still is subject of various historical interpretation and mostly misinterpretation regarding the nature of the depicted events, the location of the scene, the fate of the people in the photograph, and the circumstances behind the event. And I'm talking about this photograph. And there are so many conflicting versions behind this photo, and it led to numerous analysis and theological readings. And in a way, this photograph became some sort of decontextualized emblem of both Jewish suffering and also spiritual defiance. So what I would like to do in my short talk is first to try to deconstruct the many myths surrounding this photograph, to tell the real story of what happened there, and to trace the trajectories, both concrete and symbolic, of this photograph across the world. And I think that the story of this photograph, how it was circulated and preserved, in a way allows us to ask very interesting questions about how we remember the Holocaust. And it also raises many interesting questions about ethical questions about using photos taken by Nazis in order to humiliate the Jews as some sort of a commemoration. And let us first focus on the man in the center. This is Moshe Yoel Hagerman, born in Olkusz in 1898. In many versions, he's referred to as the town's rabbi. He wasn't the town's rabbi, he was Melamed. He was teaching Torah to young children in the Cheder. The event captured in this photo happened in July 31, 1940, in Olkusz, early morning, as part of some sort of reprisal act following the assassination of a German policeman 2 weeks ago. Members of German police and SD started moving from house to house and violently forced all adult men, both Jews and non-Jews, to gather to several points around town, where they were beaten and humiliated for hours. One of the group was brought to the Rinek, to the market square. This is what you see here. And the people there were forced to lie down, facing the ground under the blazing sun until the afternoon. People were hit with clubs and whips. Some suffered kicks, others selected randomly and were forced to run back and forth while carrying rocks. And many of the people who were persecuted in this day were specifically Jews that for the Germans looked as if they were traditional Jews. So many of the photographs, and we have plenty of photographs from this day, many of them focus on religious Jews, and the man in the center, who figures in many of the photographs, is the person that you see here, Moshe Hagerman. He appeared in many photographs. We can see him here forced to wear his desecrated tefillin. He was taken to the nearby river with his probably nephew and were forced to swim in the river. What we know about the exact circumstances of this particular photograph, the most iconic one, is that probably he was taken from his house early morning. Probably he was in the middle of prayer, the morning prayer, Shacharit. We don't know who took the picture, but apparently the sight of the religiously looking man amused the German, and he was forced to stand there and pose to the camera. As you can see, his tefillin on his head are basically broken, desecrated. We have one testimony of a man who remembered lying next to him, and he remembered how one of the Germans took the tefillin from his head, threw it to the ground, smashed it, and forced him to wear it again. Eventually, Moshe Hagerman, like most of the people after this day, returned home. But 2 years later, after the deportation from the ghetto in June 42, as you heard, Moshe Hagerman, his wife, and 4 children were sent, along with the vast majority of the Jewish community, to Auschwitz, where they were probably murdered immediately. Now, there are many stories about the circumstances behind the development and the discovery of the photo. According to one version, after the events, German brought the negatives of the pictures to a local studio in Olkusz, and the studio owner he risked his life and secretly made prints of the photograph for the future generation. This is one story. According to other versions, this photo was actually found on the body of a German soldier in Warsaw Ghetto. And it's very hard to trace the exact trajectory of the circulation and reproduction of the photograph after the war, but it appears that most of the copies originated directly or indirectly from through one source, the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw, already in the late 40s. And according to the Jewish Historical Institute, you can see now the back of the photo, of the probably original photo. According to the Institute, this single photo, this single copy was brought to Warsaw through one of the historical commissions that operated in Poland after the war. And on the back of this photo, we can notice a stamp of, in German, of Foto Winkler from the city of Görlitz, Germany. Now this town is divided between Poland and Germany. Now, when and how this particular photo, the negative, arrived in Görlitz and how the original print ended up back in Poland, it remains unknown. But probably this is the source of all other reproduction of the photo. Now, there were attempts to identify the events in the photo, and you can read it also in Polish on the back of the photo. So in 47, the historians of the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw mistakenly recognized this photo as taking place in Lviv, and you can read Lviv in Ukraine, Lviv, and you can read on the back that the man in the center is a Melamed named Loeffler, who lived in Lviv, and we have many other attempts of identify the exact place. And later on, already during the 50s, this photo started appearing in exhibitions and publications around the world, and it became an overly reproduced image. So, and in most of the cases, the photograph appeared either without any specific content or merely illustrating the humiliation, abuse, or murder of the Jews. And when concrete details did appear, they were usually false and tended to portray the events in very generalized archetypical terms. So, for example, here, in an article from 1959 from the Yiddish newspaper Forwards, you can see this photo, and it is accompanied by the title in Yiddish as follows: A Scene from Warsaw Ghetto, Kiddush Hashem in the Ghetto, a scene from Warsaw Ghetto, and it says on the bottom, a barefoot rabbi is reciting Kaddish over the murdered Jews in Warsaw Ghetto, wearing talit and tefillin as the Nazi murderers are laughing. Now, you can find many other locations. For example, you can see this undated old postcard, which you can still buy in online public auctions. And this photo bears the inscription "Tormenting Jews in Minsk," which is in Belarus. And you can find also a version that this photo was taken in Vilnius, and other locations. This false interpretation also arrived to very important museum. For example, with the opening of the old museum of Yad Vashem in Jerusalem in the 70s, the enlarged photograph, as you can see here, appeared in the exhibition. And the caption at the bottom of the photo went as follows, and I quote, a Jew in prayer shawl and desecrated tefillin, jeered by German soldiers as he is forced to recite the prayer for the dead over the bodies of murdered Jews, Olkusz, Poland, 1940. Now, survivors from Olkusz who knew Hagerman, like my grandfather, and witnessed what happened in this day, approached Yad Vashem and asked them to change the inscription. So, for example, in 1990, my grandfather, Moshe Weizman, requested Yad Vashem that the institution tell the real story behind the photo. He explained that leaving this story without the correct details falsifies history and also disrespects the victim. Now, in response, Yitzhak Arad, who was then the chairman of Yad Vashem, wrote him, and I quote from the letter, "The information you provided us in your letter is indeed important and we strictly preserve it. However, we usually don't mention the name of the photographed people or personal detail, rather the event in its historical context." End of quote. And it was basically a reflection of the general policy regarding how to use historical photographs, not only in Yad Vashem, but also in other institutions. In many ways, photographs were used merely as some sort of historical impression without getting into details and without even reflecting on the fact that they're using photographs taken by Nazis as for purposes of anti-Semitic propaganda. Now, later on, Yad Vashem changed the inscription, but what is interesting is that to ask the question why this single photograph, received and continued to receive so many different versions and interpretations and stories about the Kaddish and about the murder of the Jews there and about the location. And I think that in many ways, the scholar Brad Prager writes that when we look on iconic Holocaust pictures, our understanding of them is predicated on the projection of knowledge and desire that we anticipate. So in other words, we see in those photos what we would like to see, what we project in our own thoughts and ideas, and it also has to do with the fact that this single photo really has a unique symbolic power. And it seems that if you look closely on the photo, it seems that almost everything here almost begs for some sort of symbolic interpretation. So we have here the story of the eternal battle between the Germans and the Jews with the Jew with the religious symbols, and he's also barefoot, which is also some sort of marker of both humiliation, but also in Judaism, some sort of holiness. And when you look on the composition, it seems that Hagerman is really distinguished from the surrounding. And it creates the impression as if Hagerman is placed in some sort of an internal sphere of his own. At the same time, vulnerable, but also untouchable, I would say, almost protected from the terror around him. This composure of devotion, and you can see that his hands are folded as a shield, as if protecting some sort of inner shelf. And I think that this symbolic power gives this photo a very strong iconic potential, and perhaps it enables us to understand how and why so many viewers naturally, very easily, allow themselves to arrive at the almost foregone conclusion after this visual build-up, allegedly condemning Moshe Hagerman to become some sort of omnipresent martyr, abused and sublime at once. So we have many examples of how different writers and thinkers treated this photo. For example, the famous author Katzetnik, Yechiel Dinur, very famous he's an Israeli Holocaust survivor who wrote very difficult books about somehow based on his experiences. And in his last book, Shiviti, and you can see the image on the cover of the book, Moshe Hagerman figures as some sort of leitmotif, some sort of divine revenant who accompanies the author in his hallucinatory impressions. And he writes that, and I quote, you can read, for the first time I took note that the normally square case of the head tefillin was spread into three peaks, like the three strokes in the Hebrew letter Shin, and was perched like a crown on the head of the Jew. Any moment now, a bullet would dispatch him to join the row of corpses lined at the feet of the rollicking German fraternity of warriors. But it was not the moment of shooting that was of significance here. Anyone could see this once in touch with the hidden light radiating from the face of the Jew. Just look at the serenity on his face and at those eyes, the way he looks down on the place and his hands folded, defying description, as does the light beaming from his bare feet. So this almost metaphysical and religious reading of this photo, of course, does not correspond with the reality in which Hagerman wasn't killed right after this photo was taken. But this very mystical analysis of Katsetnik provides some sort of articulated rationale to the very common narrative which saw in this photo some sort of eternal confrontation between the victims and the victimizers, and elevated to a dramatic and very symbolic level that inevitably almost forced Moshe Hagerman to become some sort of a martyr dying on Kiddush Hashem. Now, what is interesting is that although today people know the true story behind this photo, we can still see every once in a while how this photo is still continues to receive different versions and explanation, and you can see it in social media, and you can see it being used even recently in Israeli discussions about, for example, wearing tefillin in public spaces. It is being used as some sort of poster to compare, for example, Israeli soldiers to Holocaust survivors, and to add some sort of to combine between IDF and the memory of the Holocaust. And every once in a while, I encounter the way that this photo is continuing to be invoked in many different political and ideological debates. And if you Google this photo, the name of Hagerman or this photo, you can read how Hagerman as a symbol is continuing to be used to promote very different causes. Now, recently, well, in the last decades, actually since the publication of Krzysztof Kocjan's works, Hagerman also returned to his original place, because for many years it wasn't known in Olkusz that this photograph was actually taken there on Wednesday 1940, but since then Hagerman became some sort of emblem of logo of the many commemoration initiatives of the Jewish community that we heard about now. And in many ways, Hagerman, one could say, returned home to his concrete space of present-day Olkusz, and his image accompanies the posters for the events commemorating the Jews. And very interestingly, the question of how to use this photograph, how to commemorate the memory of Hagerman, is also a subject of a certain debate or controversy, I would say. For example, a few years ago, there was some sort of initiative to place a permanent memorial exactly on the spot where this photo was taken, where Hagerman stood. This initiative came mainly from one of the local activists, Ireneusz Ciszlik, that you heard about, and other group of activists and survivors, but he didn't receive support neither from the town leaders and neither from other Jewish descendants. And eventually, this initiative wasn't fulfilled, but in one of the marches, the annual memorial marches, I think in 2022, there was some sort of a protest in which the activists placed some sort of roll-on poster of this of this famous photograph in the place where the anticipated memorial should stay, in a way protesting against the refusal of the authorities to support the placement of this permanent memorial. And I think that this last move also raised real questions, ethical questions. Is it allowed to use photograph created by Germans for the purpose of humiliating the Jews? Is it allowed to use such documentation for commemoration? Or we can say that exactly the use of this propaganda photograph for the purpose of commemoration perhaps reverse the initial idea invested in this photo and bring back the dignity and humanity to Moshe Hagerman. And I think this question was a very serious debate. So I will end here, and I think that what I was trying to demonstrate through the story of this photograph is basically how our entire memory is based on certain visual expectations and norms, and why it's very important to understand exactly what are the origins, what are the story behind iconic Holocaust images that we usually take for granted. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yechiel. I appreciate very much your presentation. I know that it comes deep into our time together, but we would like to invite questions of people. And this time, in breaking with what we used to do, we will invite people to be heard if they would like to ask a question. And Dominika will be presenting the questions that come in Polish, and we're going to ask her to translate them to English, and then the questions that might come in that are asked in English, I will try to field them if there's any necessity. Marek and Marjana are continuing with their transcription. I have to say that personally, I had questions about could we have a program that went this long. But I think for educational and humanitarian and comprehensive purposes, these three presentations have provided us with a very important insight into the town of Olkusz, its efforts in memory that I know the descendants of Olkusz appreciate each of the three presentations. And we're now open to questions if people would like to ask, or if you would prefer to ask in chat, you can do that. We have a considerable number of remarks that have been made along the way. Rabbi Meir Perlmutter, obviously moved by the presentation, writes, powerful presentation, very moving. I don't know if there are other people who would like to come forward with a question or response.
So maybe I could say two sentences before people think about their questions. Namely, I am thinking seriously about possibility to enable people from the world to participate in our march in Olkusz. And I am not sure about technical possibilities, but I was thinking about just taking a camera which would be connected online to enable people to join our march. If it will be possible, I will put information on the web page Olkusz Jews, and I again ask for more information which I could post and add to the web page.
Thank you. There was a request that was asking about whether this would be the video would be available. It will be up in a few days. We rely on Arthur, Dominica's spouse, as our video editor, and I'm sure he will endeavor to do his best to make this available to people. We have a remark by Wendy Schanzer. My father was there on Bloody Wednesday. He was made to lie down on the ground and not move. He told me what happened. I wonder if there's anything that was perhaps written down of his testimony. Wendy, that would be something precious to have. Okay, well, I want to invite up a opportunity for people to share information that they may have with Michal Ostrowski. We will continue to add material to the website. And I want to thank again Yechiel for his presentation. Let me urge people to go and read the full essay that we have on our resources, and also an accompanying essay where he has written in detail about the March of Memory. And I hope that people actually read those resources. I want to thank again Michal Ostrowski, who was in many ways the person who was urged us to open this conversation. And I believe that this will not be the last. And Krzysztof, when the book is ready in English, we are planning for another visit with you and to talk about the features as people talk about their families and discover so much. I will relate one story that was very moving to me. A very prominent author, Aaron Hurt Mannheimer, has written a book called Sons of Survivors. His mother is from the not too distant town of Będzin. She is alive. This week she's celebrating her 150th birthday. I said to Aaron when he published the book, "Did you have any relatives in Olkusz?" He gave me the name of his relative who lived across the street from my mother in the same building as Rabbi Hagerman. And it turned out that his relative had married a Gleitman, one of our family. And that would not have been something that we've been able to figure out just if we'd let things grow. So that this event of having this book, this effort that has gone into things is of great service. And we thank everybody who's been involved as servants of memory. Warm regards to everyone. This is our, we're going to pause Friends of Jewish Renewal's programs known as Freighted Legacies, and we'll be talking about them in the future. Thank you all.